So you're sitting in a coffee shop, right? You take a sip of your latte,
Yeah.
and bam, a lightning bolt of just pure inspiration hits you.
Oh, yeah. The classic trope.
Exactly. And you're furiously scribbling this, billion-dollar idea on a napkin. It's the classic, heavily romanticized startup origin story that we all know.
And it is dangerously misleading. I mean, that mythological eureka moment makes for a great movie scene,
Yeah.
sure. But as a blueprint for actually building a company, it's terrible. Finding a viable idea isn't some divine revelation. It requires really rigorous, almost grueling homework.
Okay, let's unpack this right away, because if we look at the stack of research we're diving into today,
Yeah.
and we've got an amazing lineup pulling from Harvard Innovation Labs, First Round Capital, Sostra, Going VC, Billing Platform, and the Growth Syndicate. That coffee shop myth gets dismantled fast.
It really does. It falls apart completely when you look at the actual data.
Right. And our mission today for you, the constant learner who wants to cut through the noise, is to deconstruct the actual architecture of a successful venture. From unearthing a real idea to sizing the market, setting the price, and designing a go-to-market strategy. Plus, obviously, dodging the fatal flaws that kill early-stage companies.
Which is a huge part of it, surviving those early days.
Totally. So let's look at Puneet Soni. Before he founded Suki, which is this voice-based digital assistant for doctors,
Yeah.
he didn't just sit around waiting for an epiphany. He spent 6 whole months physically shadowing doctors in large health systems, just, watching them work.
Right, and what's wild about that is, even after 6 months of intense observation, his first big idea was a total miss.
Really, after all that time?
Yeah. He thought to himself, okay, hospitals have massive communication bottlenecks, so I'll build Slack for healthcare. And honestly, the logic seems pretty flawless.
Yeah, I mean, centralized chat fixes bottlenecks. It makes total sense on paper.
Right, until he actually pitched it to the nurses, they just flat out rejected it. Yeah, they told him they were already juggling, fax machines, pagers, electronic medical records, physical charts. If someone tried to force yet another communication protocol on them, they wouldn't just ignore it. They said they would actively sabotage it.
Man, that is a brutal reality check.
Hmm.
But it proves you can't just build the product you logically think solves a problem, right? You have to understand the emotional and physical friction of their actual day.
Exactly. And that's where a framework like the mom test becomes invaluable for founders.
Oh, the mom test.
It's so good. The core premise is that people will instinctively lie to you to spare your feelings. If you ask a hypothetical question like, would you use this health chat app? People will say yes, just to be supportive. Flattery is startup poison.
Right. It just gives you this false validation that leads you off a cliff. So
Mhm.
instead of hypotheticals, you have to interrogate their past behavior.
Spot on. You never ask what they would do.
Yeah. You ask, how did you try to solve this communication issue last Tuesday? What did you actually do? Because if they haven't actively tried to solve the problem already, it's probably not a burning issue for them.
Which ties perfectly into the jobs to be done framework. The fundamental shift here, and this is so critical, is realizing that customers don't buy products at all. They hire them to make progress in a specific situation.
Right, like hiring an employee. You don't buy a drill because you want to own a piece of spinning metal. You are hiring that drill to put a 1/4-inch hole in your wall. You're buying the hole.
Yes, you're buying the outcome. And when you apply that lens to startups, it radically changes where you look for ideas.
So building a startup is less about waiting to get struck by lightning and more like packing your backpack for a really steep mountain climb. You have to put the intellectual vigor in beforehand.
I like that analogy. You have to do the prep. Anilad Gill talks about this in the sources. He advises founders to look at non-obvious markets, specifically spaces that seem entirely too niche or just, frankly, incredibly boring.
Boring, because nobody else wants to deal with it. I mean, look at a company like PagerDuty.
Oh, great example.
Right. Incident response software for IT departments. It is the furthest thing from glamorous, but it solves a hair-on-fire problem. When a server goes down at 3 a.m., IT managers are desperate to hire a solution that wakes up the right engineer immediately.
Precisely. It's a massive pain point. Another strategy Gill suggests is mentally relaxing the constraints of your current reality. Think about the late 90s. Founders had to mentally eliminate the constraint of 56K dial-up internet to even conceive of rich, broadband-heavy applications.
They had to assume the infrastructure would catch up.
Exactly. You have to project where the technology curve is inevitably going and build for that future state.
Okay, so let's say we found our boring hair-on-fire problem. We're building for the future. The next hurdle, and this is where I see a lot of friction, is figuring out if enough people actually care about it to sustain a real company. Because if it's just, a handful of IT managers, you have a niche consulting gig, not a scalable startup.
Which brings up the venture capital math. The big three. TAM, SAM, and SO.
The classic acronym trio. Let's ground this for everyone. Say we're building a mental health and fitness app. The TAM to mean the total addressable market is the absolute maximum revenue if we magically captured 100% of the global market with zero constraints. Let's call it $10 billion.
Which looks amazing on a pitch deck. It's a huge number, but it's pure theory. You then have to filter it down to the SAM, right? The serviceable addressable market.
Which is what
So
exactly?
this is what your specific product can realistically serve right now. If your app is English only and built around US health codes, your SAM might be limited to English-speaking US users. So maybe that 10 billion shrinks down to, say, $300 million.
Okay, 300 million is still a massive number. But wait, a $10 billion TAM or even a $300 million SAM, isn't that just a vanity metric? Like, founders use these massive numbers to hype up investors, but it feels like selling a dream. How does a VC actually look at that without rolling their eyes?
Well, what's fascinating here is that VCs do roll their eyes at the TAM. They totally know it's just a vision of the ultimate ceiling. Where they actually apply the intense scrutiny is the SOM, the serviceable obtainable market.
It has sewing.
Yeah, this is what you can realistically capture in the next 12 to 36 months. And it factors in your actual marketing budget, your sales capacity, and the brutal reality of competition.
So if we expect to capture just 1% of that $300 million SAM in year one, our SOM is $3 million.
Exactly. And investors love a well-calculated S because it proves operational maturity. A grounded, bottom-up forecast based on real customer acquisition costs shows you aren't just hallucinating.
Right, you're not just throwing darts.
Yeah. Claiming you'll hit a $3 million SOM with a specific step-by-step plan builds way more trust than claiming you'll accidentally capture half of a $10 billion market.
That makes so much sense. You're proving you know how to play the game on the field, not just pointing at the scoreboard. But even with a realistic SOM, how do you keep from getting completely crushed by incumbents? The giants who already own the space.
You don't fight them. You completely redefine the space using the blue ocean strategy.
Ah, blue ocean.
Yeah. The premise is that most companies compete in red oceans. These are bloody, hyper-competitive markets where everyone is just fighting over the same shrinking profit margins. The goal is to create uncontested market space, a blue ocean, using the ERRC grid. That stands for Eliminate, Reduce, Raise, and Create.
I love the Cirque du Soleil example for this. It's so vivid. The traditional circus industry was this dying red ocean. Kids preferred video games, animal rights groups were protesting it was a mess. But they used the grid. They eliminated the expensive animal acts completely.
Which saved them a fortune in logistics.
Right. And they reduced the focus on individual star performers. Then they raised the production value to basically Broadway theater levels. And ultimately, they created a totally new premium hybrid of theater and acrobatics.
They made the competition irrelevant. Nintendo did the exact same thing with the Wii.
Oh, true. The graphics wars.
Yeah, Sony and Microsoft were locked in this bloody graphics arms race. Nintendo completely ignored it. They eliminated the complex controllers that intimidated non-gamers, they raised family accessibility, and they created motion control gaming.
Or look at Yellowtail wine. Traditional wine culture is incredibly intimidating. You have to know the vintage, the terroir, all of it. Yellowtail just simplified the taste, made the packaging fun with that kangaroo, and entirely bypassed wine snobs to target beer drinkers.
Exactly. They didn't steal market share from other wineries. They expanded the market itself. They created a blue ocean out of people who didn't even know they wanted wine.
Brilliant. Great. So let's say we've carved out this beautiful blue ocean. We've got the product. We've got a realistic SOM. Now comes the part that absolutely terrifies founders. Extracting value. Setting the price.
It is terrifying. And the psychological weight of it is massive for founders. There's this cautionary tale in the sources about a chief product officer from 2025 who basically panicked and dropped their pricing by 30% just to match a new competitor.
Which, I mean, that seems like a logical defense mechanism, right? You want to protect your market share.
You'd think so, but it completely backfired. Existing customers saw the price drop and immediately questioned the product's actual value. They thought, wait, were we being overcharged this whole time, or is the product degrading?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it destroyed their brand trust. Pricing isn't just a math equation. It is a massive psychological signal of your market position.
Because the old way of doing this cost-plus pricing completely ignores that psychology. Cost-plus is basically taking what it costs to make the product, slapping a 20% margin on it, and calling it a day.
Which makes zero sense in software, especially.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. Cost-plus pricing is like pricing a treasure map based on the cost of the paper it's printed on, rather than the gold it leads you to. You have to charge based on the destination.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You have to move to value-based pricing, which requires you to monetize the outcomes you deliver. Let's actually do the math on this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine your software saves a corporate compliance team 1,200 hours annually. If those employees are paid $60 an hour, your software just created $72,000 in hard, undeniable savings.
But we obviously can't charge them $72,000 for software.
No, of course not. But if your product is the direct engine of that efficiency, you might capture, say, 25% of the value created. That's $18,000 a year. Suddenly, pitching them $1,500 a month doesn't seem expensive at all. It's a deeply logical investment based on ROI.
It completely changes the conversation from, look at this cool tool, to look at this financial return.
Yeah.
But how do you structure that mechanically so it scales with the customer? Because you don't just want a flat fee if they start getting way more value later.
Right, you have to pick the right value metric. For instance, there's a project management tool called Project One mentioned in the sources. They realized that charging per user was actually creating massive friction.
Right, because every time a company wants to add a freelancer or a new hire, they get penalized with a new fee.
Exactly. It actively punishes growth.
Mm-hmm.
So Project One shifted to charging by the number of active projects. If a company has 50 projects running, they're extracting massive value from the tool and they naturally pay more. If they have a slow month with only 5 projects, they pay less.
That's super elegant. The revenue aligns perfectly with the customer's success, but to dial in that exact dollar figure, like how much a project costs the sources, highlight the Van Westendorp pricing model. I love how practical this is.
It takes all the guesswork out.
It does. You aren't guessing in a vacuum. You survey your target market with 4 very specific questions. First, at what price is this a bargain? Second, at what price is it getting too cheap, where you'd actually question the quality?
Which is such a counterintuitive but brilliant question.
Totally. Third, at what price is it getting expensive, but you still consider it? And finally, at what price is it prohibitively expensive?
And when you map those out, the intersection of those 4 data points gives you a highly accurate pricing corridor. The market literally tells you what it will bear. It balances the desire for a deal with the psychological signal of premium quality we talked about earlier.
Okay, so the product is built, the blue ocean is found, and we have a data-backed, value-based price. But a phenomenal product doesn't just spontaneously generate revenue. People have to find it. How are modern startups engineering the actual discovery?
That is the go-to-market, or GTM, strategy. And the dominant force in software right now is product-led growth, PLG.
Hear that everywhere.
Right. In a PLG motion, the product itself is the primary engine for acquisition, retention, and expansion. Usually this relies on a totally frictionless freemium model or some kind of viral loop embedded in the product.
Slack is the ultimate case study here, right? They hit 265,000 daily active users in their first year, and they reached a $1.12 billion valuation without hiring a single outbound sales rep.
It's mind-blowing.
The product just spread internally from team to team organically.
And Dropbox is another incredible example of leveraging the product for distribution. Because early on, they were bleeding cash. They were spending over $200 in ads just to acquire a single customer for a $99 product.
Yeah, that is a mathematically guaranteed path to bankruptcy.
Absolutely. So they engineered a referral loop. Invite a friend, you both get free storage. It was brilliant because it gamified the product's core value. That one change dropped their customer acquisition costs by 60%.
And we see this outside of software, too. Think about Dollar Shave Club. They didn't try to outspin Gillette's massive entrenched sales force. Gillette had like 70% market share.
Right.
They launched a direct-to-consumer model propelled by a viral $4,500 YouTube video. They used humor and accessibility as their distribution engine rather than retail shelf space.
Which was genius, but we have to address the limits of this.
Yeah, I was going to push back here. PLGs is great when you're selling a $10 razor or a free chat app. But what if you're selling a $500,000 cybersecurity suite? You can't just drop a sign-up link in an email and expect a Fortune 500 company to input their corporate card. Doesn't the PLG model completely break down there?
It does, completely. And that distinction is critical for founders to understand. Enterprise procurement is a totally different beast. You're dealing with 6 to 10 different stakeholders.
Oh, the buying committees.
Exactly. It requires rigorous discovery calls, highly customized implementation plans, and massive security and legal reviews.
You absolutely need humans involved to navigate that bureaucracy. PLG won't cut it.
Yes. For deals over $50,000, you almost always need a sales-led motion. Often this involves account-based marketing or ABM, where you literally treat one specific target company as an entire market and build a custom campaign just for them.
Wow, just for one company.
Yeah. But the reality is, mature companies usually land on a hybrid approach. They use self-serve PLG to capture individuals and small teams at the bottom, and then they deploy highly trained sales reps to upsell those grassroots users into massive enterprise contracts.
So if we execute all of this, we have a validated problem, a realistic SOM, value-based pricing, and a dialed-in GTM strategy. Are we safe? Like, is success guaranteed?
Unfortunately, no, not at all. Startups still fail at an alarming rate. Between 35 and 42% die simply because there was no actual market need.
Even with all the frameworks. Which means they fell victim to the fatal flaws of first-time founders. Jason Lumpkin and the Harvard Innovation Lab sources call out some very specific traps here. Let's dig into the psychology behind them, starting with the most common one: building too soon.
Oh, this is the technical founder's curse. Writing code feels productive. It's their comfort zone. So instead of doing the grueling, awkward work of interviewing potential customers, all that mom test stuff we talked about, they retreat to their basement and just build for 6 months.
What happens?
They end up with an incredibly elegant solution looking for a problem.
It's the illusion of progress. You feel busy, but you're going nowhere. Another huge trap is overvaluing stealth mode. I hear this constantly from new founders. I can't tell you my idea. You have to sign an NDA first.
Oh, yeah, the NDA obsession.
Right. I get the fear of someone stealing your brilliant idea, but the reality is execution is what matters. Remaining in stealth mode is like a band practicing their set list in a dark, soundproof bunker for a year and then expecting a standing ovation at a stadium gig they never promoted. You desperately need the audience's feedback during rehearsals.
Exactly. If you hide your idea, you're hiding from the very feedback that would refine it. Another fatal flaw is the reluctance to go up market. A founder might gain some early traction selling to early adopters for, say, $5 a month. But when enterprise clients come along practically begging for a $500 a month version with better security and support, the founder freezes.
Because enterprise sales are intimidating. It's way easier to just stay in the shallow end of the pool, even if you're leaving massive revenue on the table.
Precisely. And then there is the silent killer, failing to manage cash burn with extreme precision.
Oh, this happens so much.
A founder raises a seed round and thinks, great, we have 24 months of runway. But they don't rigorously track how new hires, software subscriptions, and ad spend quietly compound month over month.
Right. Suddenly, that 24 months stealthily shrinks to 16 months.
Yep.
And they hit a wall before they've reached the milestones needed to raise their next round.
They drown in inches.
Man, that's bleak. And the last one from the sources is incredibly relevant right now. Confusing a trend with a market. Throwing the words generative AI onto a landing page does not constitute a business model. A hot technology is not a substitute for a concrete, monetizable customer use case.
It really isn't. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, connecting all these frameworks, the problem validation, the pricing, the GTM strategies, the pitfalls there, is one foundational piece from the Harvard iLabs research we simply cannot skip. It's the danger of ignoring the why.
The founder's personal why.
Yes. Before you run a Van Westendorp pricing survey, before you calculate a SOM, you have to confront your core visceral motivation. Why are you actually doing this? Are you trying to create generational wealth? Are you trying to solve a specific societal issue? Are you just trying to prove you can do it?
And why does that personal motivation dictate the architecture of the business?
Yeah.
Like, if the math works, why does the personal motivation matter?
Because a startup is an irrational amount of stress. It's a pressure cooker. When cash gets tight, When a competitor launches a feature that temporarily crushes you if the founding team's motivations aren't aligned, that pressure will fracture them.
Ah, I see.
If one co-founder is in it for a quick $10 million exit and the other wants to build a 20-year legacy brand, no go-to-market strategy in the world can save them from tearing each other apart. The why is the bedrock that holds the entire architecture together.
That is a profound place to land. It strips away all the spreadsheets and the pitch decks and gets right down to the human element. So I want to turn this over to you, the listener. Look at the projects you're dedicating your life to right now, the business you're building, the team you're leading. Have you pressure tested your why? Have you sat down with your partners and asked each other the terrifyingly honest questions about what you actually want out of this?
It's the most important conversation you can have.
It really is. Because building a startup isn't about waiting for lightning to strike in a coffee shop. It's about knowing exactly what problem you're solving, deeply understanding the value you create, and having the unshakable alignment to survive the climb. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.